The budget is usually one area that leads to big battles at the Capitol, but this year's debate could take on a different tone. For months, we've been telling you how lawmakers would likely have more money than ever before available to spend. On Monday, we found out just how big that number was. Comptroller Glenn Hegar released his official budget forecast, and it included a record-breaking budget surplus of nearly $33 billion. He calls it a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, but also a unique challenge for the state.
How do we make decisions today that will not necessarily impact the budget every single year reoccurring? Maybe there's only a one-time opportunity to invest in water infrastructure, to invest in the electrical grid, to invest in broadband internet coverage where we have 3 million people. 3 million out of 30 that have no internet coverage at their house if they want to, a broadband coverage. So how do we make sure those connectivities are there? Or make sure that we retain good quality state employees, teachers, nurses, skilled trades that we all depend on every single day. And so therefore I think these things are decisions they're able to make that won't just impact the next 2 years, but literally can impact in future generations. And then lastly, as we all know, with higher inflation, people are paying more at the average household goods they're buying, and they're paying more in their property taxes. And so trying to have real meaningful property tax relief, I think, is imperative for them this legislative session.
In all, Hegar predicts the state will have $188 billion available for the budget. That's a jump of more than 26% over the last 2 years. But more money could bring more problems. Lawmakers can do just about anything they want, but they can't do everything. The battle now is choosing how to use the money to help the people who created the surplus, Texas taxpayers. Hegar urges the legislature to be prudent because there's no telling what the next 2 years will bring.
While the overall economy of Texas is performing very strongly today, that ironically in this revenue estimate, I'm also saying Texas is going to likely have a mild recession later this year. Now, what we don't know is that potential recession nationally and globally, how deep, how wide, how long. We've had an unprecedented number of events in the last 3 years. A Russian invasion of Ukraine, impacts on global supplies, food supplies, and so therefore, we don't know what's on the horizon.
The governor has campaigned on spending up to half of the surplus on cutting property taxes. Meanwhile, advocacy groups have called for using some of the funds for teachers, students, and Medicaid expansion. One of the most common questions we get when we cover the comptroller is how to pronounce the title. Even though the word is spelled with a P, the correct pronunciation is controller. But why? We did a little research. One common explanation we found was that the word was derived from the Middle English word controller, referring to someone who checks a scroll. But somewhere along the way, some people mistakenly thought it was related to the French word compte, meaning account. The P became part of the spelling. That's confusing enough. On top of that, we've heard people like Governor Abbott and Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick pronounce the P. That even happens with some people who have held the comptroller's office here in Texas and in other states. We asked Hegar about it, and he had his own take on how to handle the pronunciation.
I will say technically correct, either controller or comptroller. It's amazing, half the staff around here says one way and half to say the other way. As one of my deputies said 8 years ago when he was testifying in the legislature, and somebody said, is it controller or comptroller? He said, let me explain to you like this. As of December 31, I was working for Comptroller Susan Combs. As of January 1, I now work for Comptroller Glenn Hegar. It's however the boss says it. So both are correct, but I like to go by the word controller.
There you have it, straight from the comptroller. Thank you again for joining us for State of Texas. I'm Josh Hinkle. We'll be back next week to bring you an in-depth look at Texas politics.